We're starting off with Raw, where fans saw a tense but respectful exchange between World Champion Gunther and undisputed WWE Champion Cody Rhodes. Rhodes started off by addressing the crowd in the Enterprise Center, noting that this was the birthplace of the We Want Cody movement, before asking what they wanted to talk about. It wasn't long before Gunther arrived on the scene, and the Austrian acknowledged Rhodes' impact on the company and praised him for carrying WWE on his back. Gunther also brought up Rhodes' ongoing issues with Kevin Owens on SmackDown, saying that Owens has realized that Cody is everybody's friend. The problem with that is that it means that Cody, according to Gunther, is nobody's true friend, and Cody was somewhat taken aback with this line. Rhodes fired back, stating that Gunther hasn't yet reached the full potential of his WWE journey, and reminding him that they've never faced each other in a one-on-one match. Rhodes also pointed out his own accomplishments, highlighting his victory over the most dominant champion in WWE history and defeating a frightening beast. Cody may have fired back, but it didn't come across as the usual Rhodes fire, and one has to wonder whether Gunther has the number of the undisputed WWE champion. Wade Barrett had a great line saying that Cody Rhodes and Gunther are both at the top of their game, but we'll find out who is 1A and who is 1B at Crown Jewel. As the segment came to a close, the tensions between the two culminated in a surprising handshake by Gunther, leaving Rhodes and the fans confused and intrigued. Was this a sign of respect by Gunther for a worthy adversary, or is there something else at play with the Austrian? And if so, what does this mean for their future encounters? The two will battle for the Crown Jewel Championship, and who do you think should win? Are you expecting Goldberg to interfere as some has predicted? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now, Adam Pearce is a busy man on Raw, but when speaking to Seth Rollins this week, he took time to express his concern in a match that the Visionary wanted. Rollins had been gunning for a one-on-one match with Bronson Reed, the man who took him out months ago with 6 consecutive tsunamis on the post-SummerSlam Raw. Pearce pointed out that Seth had only wrestled 6 matches this year, which is true in terms of televised bouts, but including live events, Rollins has still only competed 14 times. Pearce said that in all of his bouts he had been injured, making him apprehensive about booking the match against the dominant and hungry Bronson Reed. Rollins explained that pushing through injuries is part of the business and that he needs guys like Bronson Reed to keep him pushing his limits. The segment came after Pearce had a sit-down with Reed himself, who warned that his path of destruction would not stop until he got his match with Seth Rollins. Rollins ended up costing Reed his bout against Braun Strowman, but it paled in comparison to what Bronson Reed did to him when he hit him with a wave of tsunamis. Despite Pearce's best efforts, it appears that Rollins and Reed are on a collision course with one another, which is bound to be an exciting main event whenever it takes place. As part of his segment with Pearce, Seth Rollins brought up that he has slain beasts before, and that he was once referred to as the Beast Slayer, in a line that caught a lot of intrigue. This line was in reference to Brock Lesnar and Rollins' 2019 feud with the Beast, and this wasn't the only reference to the missing WWE star on the show. As we mentioned, Cody Rhodes reminded Gunther that he has slayed a beast before, with that beast being Lesnar, who Cody beat at SummerSlam 2023. It's been over 400 days since Lesnar's most recent WWE match, but those back-to-back references on Raw have left some speculating that the wheels are in motion for his big return. It's not hard to see why fans feel this way, especially with WWE's current regime rewarding fans who pick up on subtle clues and hints since they took over. Despite being alluded to in the Vince McMahon-Janelle Grant lawsuit, Triple H said that Brock Lesnar was at home doing Brock Lesnar things, presumably living his simple farm life. The game had previously seemed open to a return for Lesnar, who will likely get a huge pop if or when he returns to a WWE ring. Since losing to CM Punk at Bad Blood, Drew McIntyre is yet to appear on WWE TV, and many believe that the Scottish Warrior is currently on a brief break and could return soon. However, it seems that WWE may have already spoiled the return of McIntyre, as he's being advertised for the October 21st episode of Raw from Philadelphia's Wells Fargo Center. Other names advertised include Gunther, Jey Uso, Liv Morgan, Seth Rollins, and Rhea Ripley, and advertising these names is a clear indication that they'll be involved. With that said, it's worth noting that WWE cards are always subject to change, but right now, it's certainly implied that McIntyre will be a part of next week's episode of the Red Brand. It's also conceivable that Drew McIntyre was advertised for this show even before Bad Blood, and WWE may not have removed him from the promotion. With Crown Jewel approaching, WWE wants to build a stacked card for their return to Saudi Arabia, and as a top name on Raw, the company will be eager to have Drew in Riyadh. After McIntyre's potential return next week, WWE still has one more episode left on October 28, 2024 before the event, which could be enough time to set up a new feud and match for the PLE. But who would you like to see feud with Drew McIntyre next, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments section down below. In a pre-recorded promo, Bron Breakker made it clear on Monday Night Raw that the respect he once had for Intercontinental Champion Jey Uso is officially gone. It was on the September 23rd Raw that Jey won the gold from Bron, and Breakker initially showed sportsmanship by congratulating Jey on the following week's Raw. However, things took a sharp turn just a week later when Breakker brutally speared Uso, signaling a fierce rivalry as Breakker is eager to regain the Intercontinental title. On this week's Raw, Breakker finally explained his actions, making it clear that despite both being second-generation superstars, he believes he's walking his own path. Jey, according to Bron, has been kicking off his family's legacy, and stated if Jey wants to prove he can do it on his own, he'll have to take a kicking by Breakker all by himself. Breakker ominously added that no one from Jey's family can save him from what's coming next, and left fans eager to see what's to come in this feud of Breakker and the new Intercontinental Champion. Breakker didn't just talk the talk on Raw, he also faced Kofi Kingston, who wanted payback on Bron for what transpired 1 week ago. It was after Jey's victory over Xavier Woods last week that Bron took out Uso as well as Kingston when the New Day star tried to help out the Intercontinental Champion. With a furious Breakker this week, Kingston had his work cut out, and after Bron hit him with a bounce off the rope spear that practically cut Kofi in half, Breakker got the win. Xavier Woods was absent from Kingston's side during the match and didn't appear afterward until Breakker attempted to attack his New Day teammate after the bout concluded. For his troubles, Woods got attacked from behind, and he was going to get speared until Jey Uso made his way to the ring and hit Breakker with a super kick and a spear. Woods was hardly happy about Uso coming out, but he seemed ready to put it behind him as Uso had helped them, and Jey would take Breakker out again with a super kick. Breakker took a look at the combined forces of Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, and Jey Uso and beat a hasty retreat, almost running away as he knew the odds were not on his side. It'll be on next week's Raw that Breakker gets a rematch for the Intercontinental title, which promises to be an exciting contest if his previous match with Jey is any indication. In addition to Bron Breakker, Jey Uso had to deal with his brother Jimmy this week at Raw, and it's clear that not all family wounds have been healed just yet. After this segment, Jey returned to his locker room to find Jimmy waiting for him, and while Jimmy attempted to initiate conversation, Jey wasn't having it. The Eat Master left without saying a word, clearly not ready to patch things up, but Jimmy made another attempt later on in the show. This time, Jey became more visibly frustrated, angrily telling Jimmy to get out of his face, and these tensions have been building since Jey departed the Bloodline last year. While it seems like a reunion isn't happening anytime soon, it's reported that the pair will eventually reunite in time to align with Roman Reigns to take on the Bloodline. That match will take place at Survivor Series inside War Games, but with over a month to go until then, Jimmy will have his work cut out trying to win back the trust of his brother. Rhea Ripley kicked off the show on Monday night by wasting little time calling out Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, but it was instead Tiffany Stratton who came out. Stratton threatened Ripley with big trouble if she crossed Women's World Champion Nia Jax again, and said that Liv and Rodriguez were Nia's business and she needed to stay out of it. This was all a follow-up to SmackDown where Morgan and Rodriguez helped Naomi beat Nia, which itself was part of the build to the Women's Crown Jewel title match next month. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez came out again and took both Ripley and Stratton out from behind, and this set up a main event tag match with Ripley and Stratton teaming up. At first, Ripley insisted she didn't want any help, but Adam Pearce wouldn't let her go it alone, and when Tiffany showed up, Pearce put her in the main event without her even realizing it. Ripley reluctantly agreed to let Stratton team up with her, and this all came after an injury scare took place during the opening segment of the show. At one point in the brawl, Ripley landed on one of Stratton's heels, and while she seemed hurt and in pain, PW Insider reports that she is not injured. This was a frankly lazy segment to start the show with little substance to speak of, and the only takeaway being a tag team match for later in the broadcast. The most interesting part of this entire ordeal was the emergence of unlikely duo Ripley and Stratton, who will take on the heels later in the evening. Damian Priest has been busy with the Judgment Day in recent months, but on this week's Raw, the former world champion looked at his future in WWE. At Bad Blood, Priest was finally able to defeat Finn Balor, and while Balor was intent on getting a rematch this week, Adam Pearce turned him down and told him to focus on the tag team division. Priest spoke to Rhea Ripley and said that he'd be around to help Rhea if she needed it, but that he had his own goal to reclaim the World Heavyweight Championship. Priest vowed to be back in the title picture in El Campeon soon, though it'll be Gunther who takes on Cody Rhodes for the men's crown jewel title next month. However, with Damian Priest also focusing on the world title, Gunther may have another challenge to focus on soon. In the main event of Raw, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez capitalized on dissension between Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton to seize the control early on. The heels isolated Stratton and worked her over until a hot tag to Mommy sparked a babyface comeback and had Ripley and Stratton in a position to pick up a big win. That was until Nia Jax interfered, causing a disqualification, and she and Ripley teed off until Jax laid out Liv Morgan with the Annihilator. This set up Stratton to cash in her Money in the Bank contract on the Women's World Champion, but Dominic Mysterio saved Liv, and the Judgment Day retreated to close out the show. This was a fun match with Ripley and Stratton having a fun dynamic, while Morgan and Rodriguez had solid chemistry as a heel team, picking up where they left off as partners previously. Jax's involvement made sense, giving her upcoming match with the Women's World Champion, and her efforts to keep Stratton's briefcase as far away from her own title as possible. In short, this all worked, even if the time for Ripley versus Morgan to wrap up is drawing, and WWE needs to make the call whether to put the title back on Rhea or not very soon. Putting Tiffany with the popular babyface Ripley is a clear indication that WWE is leaning towards a heroic turn for Stratton, which could spell disaster for Nia Jax and her title reign. We seem to be mere inches away from a full babyface turn for the Money in the Bank holder, and where do you see this booking going? Sound off down in the comments. Over to TNA, as Hendry sent off a wave of speculation this week when responding to a fan who's hardly been impressed with the viral Scottish star. On Twitter, a fan said it was kinda crazy how fast Hendry fell off the radar, and Hendry said that it was kinda crazy how poorly that tweet will age in about 4 months. 4 months from now is February 2025, which is the same month that WWE will host its Royal Rumble, and fans speculated that Hendry could be a surprise entrant in the 30-man match. Some even said that the tweet was Hendry gearing up for a fully fledged debut in WWE, despite his current commitments to TNA as one of the company's top stars. However, sources within TNA told Fightful Select that Hendry remains a focal point in the company's plans for 2025, indicating that his contract runs through late 2025. Some in TNA are pushing for Hendry to win the TNA World title in his upcoming match against Nick Nemeth at Bound for Glory, which will take place this month, long before the Rumble. Despite the rumors swirling about WWE, Hendry is focused on his immediate future in TNA and is scheduled to join the Hardys for a media tour in Detroit next week to promote Bound for Glory. The show will take place on October 26th at Wayne State Fieldhouse, and a title win would certainly cement Hendry's place not just in TNA, but atop the company's roster. Do you think that Hendry will make a surprise appearance at the Royal Rumble, or will he stay loyal to TNA? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. For a long time now, the World Tag Team titles held by the Judgment Day haven't been defended, with the group having just one defense on TV over their 108-day reign. On this week's Raw, Adam Pearce made it clear to Finn Balor and JD McDonough that it was about to change, and a huge announcement was made regarding the tag team title reign. The Raw GM shared that a tag team tournament would determine the number one contenders for the tag team titles, and the first match took place during this week's show. That match saw the return of the Viking Raiders, now known as the War Raiders, who teamed for the first time in 13 months after last being a unit in September 2023. Erik had been out since September 2023, while Ivar had been out of action since the April 30th, 2024 episode of NXT, and the War Raiders proved that they haven't missed a beat. The pair hit their signature Fallout move on Akira Tozawa to get the win over Alpha Academy, and the Raiders have now advanced in the tournament. So far, no other first-round matches or other teams for that matter have been announced, and we'll have to see who gets a shot at the World Tag Team Champions. What are your thoughts on the War Raiders' return? Could they be next in line for Tag Team Gold? Share your opinions in the comments below. A cool video package spotlighting Dragon Lee aired, and spots like these, especially on Raw when time constraints prevent superstars appearing regularly, could be very useful. A package like this could do far more for the Pure Fusion Collective than a bunch of meaningless tag matches they'll lose most of, and we hope we see more of these packages. The Miz took on R-Truth on Raw in a short match, but one that saw a different side to the A-lister, as well as a glitch from the Wyatt Six. The glitch featured a biblical reference to Ezekiel 28:17, which speaks of your heart being lifted through beauty, but your wisdom being corrupted for the sake of splendor. The verse reads, Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. A second Bible verse from Obadiah 1:3 speaks of the pride of your heart deceiving you, as it states, "The pride of your heart has deceived you, O dwellers in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is the heights, who say in your heart, who can bring me down to the ground?" These two biblical teases were followed by coordinates to the Wells Fargo Center, which is the home of next week's Raw, seemingly confirming the group's return to TV for next week. As for the match, R-Truth would roll up and beat The Miz, and then a hit was ordered by Karrion Kross and fulfilled by The Miz after the bout. Uncle Howdy said in a previous tease that The Miz had to have time to correct his sins, but instead he's gone further and further into the darkness thanks to Karrion Kross. There was also an image of what looked to be two women, but with the glitch effect it's hard to tell, and if it is two women, it's impossible to say for certain who they are supposed to be. But who do you think these mysterious individuals were, and what are you expecting for the Wyatt Six return to Raw next week? Share your predictions down below. On Raw, American Made had a video package vowing to be the heroes that the people deserve, and we'll have to see what's to come now that their feud with the Wyatt Six is wrapped up. Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair withstood the challenge of Io Sky and Kairi Sane, retaining their women's tag team titles in the opening match from Raw. The champions retained, but not without the assist of NXT's Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend after finding themselves on the defensive late into the match. A distraction from the Metaphor members allowed Belair and Cargill the chance to recover, and the EST would hit the KOD for the pinfall victory. The match was very good, as should be expected given the talent involved. The growth and evolution of Cargill as a worker has been fun to watch. She was as good here as she's ever been, while Belair is one of the best of her era, and Io Sky remains one of the best wrestlers in the industry. Kairi Sane is still somehow underrated despite her success both in and out of WWE, and the finish protected Damage Control's credibility and gave them an out. Now the group has a reasonable argument for a rematch while the champions turn their attention to Jackson and Legend, who are benefiting from time on the main roster. Now Ezekiel Jackson was part of WWE for years and was the final ECW champion, and now close to a decade after his most recent match in October 2015, he could be returning to the ring. On Twitter, fans discussed whether Jackson can still move in the ring, and when one said, "Prove it," Jackson responded by saying "soon," meaning we could see him in the ring in the near future. Over to AEW as Mercedes Mone made her official debut in March at Big Business, bringing with her global recognition and a strong and loyal fan base. Mone, who has received mixed reactions on social media, is now being positioned as one of AEW's top heels, but Jim Ross is still waiting to feel the spark from the CEO. On his Grilling JR podcast, Ross spoke of not quite feeling connected to Mone's character in AEW so far, as he said, "I still haven't felt her connection yet. I know that she has a lot of popularity, I know that people around the world know who she is, but I haven't felt it. Sometimes I think she's a cool babyface, and sometimes I think she's a cool heel, but she's pretty cool nonetheless." Despite her star power, Ross's comments suggest that Mone's character development may still be evolving as she transitions into her new role in AEW after years with WWE. What do you think of Mercedes Mone's run in AEW so far? Do you agree with Jim Ross, or have you connected with her character? Let us know in the comments section below. For years, the Briscoes were regarded as one of the greatest tag teams to never make it to WWE, but the pair came close to reaching the company back in 2013. While speaking to Aped Comics, Mark Briscoe revealed that he and Jay were planned to be introduced alongside the Wyatt family during the group's call-up on the July 8th, 2013 Raw. Unfortunately, past tweets from Jay would lead to those plans being scrapped, and it would be these comments that would keep the Briscoes from appearing for AEW on Warner Bros. Discovery. Sadly, it had to take for Jay's passing before he was acknowledged in WWE and in AEW. And how do you think the Wyatt storyline would have gone with the Briscoes? Let us know below. And we're ending with Paul White, who in 1999 was part of an infamous segment when the Big Boss Man hijacked the casket of White's father during the man's funeral. Shockingly, this segment, which also included White being dragged while clutching his father's casket, was filmed near a real funeral, and WWE would get in serious trouble for this stunt. On the What Were They Thinking podcast, Gerald Briscoe recalled this segment, saying that afterwards, WWE were banned from filming at that cemetery. That cemetery had previously been used for Undertaker segments, but that had to change after this ban, as those running the cemetery wanted to let their residents rest in peace without WWE around.